Just a few days away from the start of Denver Broncos training camp, and we as fans are getting the news that we had always hoped about Bo Nix. A very plugged-in NFL insider comes out and makes a declaration about Bo Nix on this team. That and a ton more in this channel, including a Colin Sutton report that might be accurate. I'm sure hoping it is. We're going to break it all down and a ton more in this video. If you're new to the channel, my name is Ben. I'm a diehard Denver Broncos fan, and it helps me out a ton. If you like the Broncos too, if you would like and subscribe. So today on SportsCenter, the Denver Broncos were a topic of discussion, which is awesome because I feel like when you watch ESPN, they barely ever talk about the NFL, and when they do, it's always like the Jets or another team, which is even more reason we all go to YouTube for our Broncos news. But Jeremy Fowler, who's one of the few sports reporters left who I feel like actually does his due diligence and kind of has some takes that have some research behind it, unlike a lot of the drive-by media that we heard Jaleel McLaughlin talking about, that they don't even come to practices. They just hate on us based on whatever ChatGPT writes up. Well, today, Jeremy Fowler came out on the SportsCenter morning show and basically just talked about the huge, massive gap between Bo Nix and J.J. McCarthy and what he's predicting for Bo Nix this year based on what he's heard directly through talking to Broncos sources and Sean Payton in particular. So a couple things really stood out here. And the biggest one for me is that Jeremy Fowler came out and said that Bo Nix is exactly what Sean Payton wanted him to be early on. And like, that's fantastic news for us that like, we know that what Sean Payton thought Bo was, which is why he hopped right on with Pat McAfee during the first round of the draft and just gushed about the guy. And now we're hearing all of the kind of stuff here that he operates in a muddy pocket with traffic around him. He has a quick hair, immediate trigger release. He's athletic. He's mature. He's started 61 games in college. He handles himself like a pro. We heard his former coach from the University of Oregon talk about how much they'll miss him and how he was almost like having another coach on the field. Even actually said that Bo Nix watches more film than some of the coaches do. And so we're seeing that, and we're hearing Sean Payton say the same thing. And so Jeremy Fowler came out and said, hey, there's no way that this, at the very jump, that it is not Bo Nix. And he went on to further say that while the Minnesota Vikings are in a very similar spot where they have J.J. McCarthy and Sam Darnold, we have Bo Nix and Zach Wilson. So we got a quarterback drafted like really early on our team, just like the Minnesota Vikings do. He said that he doesn't see J.J. McCarthy starting at least until the bye week and probably not that entire year. So he has made quite the first impression. And so as long as that carries on through the first couple weeks of training camp, Bo Nix is the guy, and I cannot wait for that August 11th game in Indianapolis. I'm going to be there with my son and cannot wait to see Bo running this offense. And so just hearing him say the skill set that Bo Nix has and looking at that in comparison to what we had with Russell Wilson, I could have pulled up 100 videos that demonstrated this, but the one that really jumps out to me was this game here, a must-win game, playoffs on the line. Probably one of the most disappointed I've been in the Broncos in a long time. And here's a pretty pivotal play right here where you got Jerry Jeudy wide open, like literally would have walked in for a touchdown, and he had a beautiful, beautiful pocket here. And watch what he does, right? So right here, you're going to see Jerry Jeudy wide open right there, could have walked into the end zone. This safety comes this way with Mims, and you got Jerry Jeudy wide open. No pressure, and you see Russell Wilson spin himself into the sack. We're going to watch this in real time here. And this is like PTSD for all of us in Denver Broncos country. Again, wide open right there. Just could have walked into the end zone. And there you see Russell Wilson spin himself into a sack. And so you look at that in comparison to what a plugged-in ESPN insider is seeing, that we have the quarterback who can operate in a pocket with traffic around him, who has a hair-quick trigger to release to the open guy, and that's exactly what Sean Payton wants. You know, as we talk about the strength of this Denver Broncos team moving into training camp, it is certainly our offensive line. And while PFF only has them as the 15th ranked offensive line, how many of those sacks last year that they gave up were not actually the offensive line's fault whatsoever? I think that's a great example that on paper, that's a sack against your quarterback. That was not the offensive line's fault. And so do not be surprised to see now that you have a quarterback who can get the ball out by the time his third foot hits on those 3-step drops, that our offensive line is going to jump up. And like, that's something you can it's like a money back guarantee right there for the Denver Broncos. Other great report coming out here that I think just shows a level of confidence that is backed then by a glowing return that you hear Sean Payton talk about. We know Russell Wilson went out and bought that house that was the most expensive property ever bought in the Denver metro area. And that showed all the confidence in him, but that confidence was not reflected in Sean Payton. From the second he got to Denver, he was talking about how Russell Wilson needed to stop going around kissing babies and how he wanted us to be more silent operators and not putting everything out on Twitter. Sean Payton's gushing about Bo Nix. Bo Nix was the first-round quarterback to sign his rookie quarterback deal in the first round. Someone pointed out that Spencer Rattler signed on the same day, but he was the first-round quarterback to do it. And then he went out and bought a $4 million house in Castle Rock. I think Castle Pines is in Castle Rock, somewhere over there. So I just think, like, you look at your coaches gushing about you, and you are now going out and buying a $4 million house. I think that is showing that he has the confidence that he is going to be here for a long time. And you're kind of seeing that in all the fans' response here, that you can't look at that and not just be like, hey, confidence is sky high in this dude. So today, as we hear about a president stepping aside and yielding his floor, you know who I wish would yield their floor and stop talking all the time? It would be all the people who are just dogging the Denver Broncos for no apparent reason. And so I'm looking here at just like the disparity here as CBS has gone out and ranked the head coaches in the National Football League. The other day we talked about how Colin Cowherd came out and gave his rankings. He had Sean Payton as the fourth best coach in the entire NFL. We've gone through. Dick Vermeil said that Sean Payton and Andy Reid were the best offensive minds of the entire decade. And so now CBS has Sean Payton not as the top 4, not as a top 10, not as a top 15. This CBS poll, or the CBS article, has Sean Payton ranked as the 18th best coach in the NFL. And I think that is absolutely laughable. And one of the reasons it gives for Sean Payton being one of the 18th best, not even in the top 15, was the fact that he thinks that Sean Payton is resetting the timetable for the Denver Broncos being victorious. And he thinks that the kind of what's implied here is that, like, Sean Payton now has another year that he doesn't have to make the playoffs. But I think if you've been following how Sean is talking about this team, how all the players are talking about this team, Sean Payton is not resetting any timeline. We are going for it this year, and I think that's going to be a phenomenal thing that we're doing that. Other big piece of news here is, as we think about when we want Bo Nix to actually be taking those first-team reps, when we want him actually being the starter, one of the things I had hoped for was that his first game as a Denver Bronco was not going to be against the Russell Wilson-led Pittsburgh Steelers. I just thought that was a ton of pressure to put on a player in his first game. And we are now seeing reports out of Pittsburgh that is the game on their schedule that is already circled in yellow or orange, or, you know, there's bulletin board material all over there. And we have seen, like last year when we played against Nathaniel Hackett and the Jets, that was like one of the only good games the Jets had played all year. They rallied there for Nathaniel Hackett. My worry is that the same exact thing is going to happen with the Pittsburgh Steelers, as now one of Russell Wilson's new receivers, Calvin Austin, came out and said, this will be one of those games we have to get for Russ for sure. And so week 2, man, the environment is going to be electric, knowing that this is a bulletin board game for Pittsburgh Steelers. But I think it's also going to be a bulletin board game for Sean Payton, because he has been the person who has been thrown under the bus over and over and over. And while he did indeed chew Russell Wilson out after that on the sideline of that Detroit Lions game, I feel like our parting from Russ was handled really above board. And, you know, he wasn't the one reminding us of all of these types of plays from Russell Wilson. I feel like he did take about as high of a road as you can. So last thing here quick is that as we approach training camp, looking at who's going to be the starting center is going to be crucial. Where is Mims and Franklin and Tim Patrick? Like, how does our wide receiver 2, 3, 4 all shake out? Josh Reynolds, where's he's going to be in there? Who's going to be getting starting reps as our running back? Is Javonte going to be Javonte of old? But one of the biggest storylines that we'll know right away is, what is the deal with Cortland Sutton? We saw on Instagram the other day, he tweeted out a picture of his Broncos locker with the new helmet and his wide receiver gloves with the hashtag close on it. And now there are a couple reports here that Courtland Sutton will be at training camp and a full participant. So I think that is a fantastic sign that, Sean Payton really does have a buttoned up winning culture here. And I can hardly wait for Friday as the Denver Broncos are back, because we have a ton to believe in. Ooh, there we go, using the rim.